This is the Universal Mind Channel. Welcome. A couple of questions we're going to answer first. Um, People have asked, why no marketing? Why no monetization? Same reason we don't ask for thumbs up. Same reason we don't ask for likes. No bell ringing. This isn't for everybody. This is a stick thrown into the river. Wherever it goes, it goes. Um, I'm of the inclination that this is not meant for commercialization. This is not meant for the masses. This is meant for the select few for whom it finds. And if you're watching this, it found you. However you came across it, you were destined to see it and watch it and form your own opinions of the universal mind from it. And that's how I want it to be. That's how I think it's meant to be. Why is the Reincarnation Scientific Theory, the book, such a difficult read? It's based on science. I'm not a physicist. I'm not a chemist. I'm a lawyer. Um, I'm a generalist. I've dealt with a lot of expert witnesses over the years in almost every field of science. Um, the book is based on over 90 scientific research papers. It took a lot of study, and I learned a lot, but it took time. I had to take, on the internet, I was able to, if you can look on YouTube and find Leonard Susskind, Dr. Susskind from Stanford, he has over 100 courses of physics. And I spent 5 years going through each and every one of them. Some more often than not, more than once, because it's not easy, and I'm not a math whiz, far from it. So, fortunately, his YouTube lectures were designed. They're videotaped lectures that he gave to basically open source people from the community. They weren't videos of his actual college lectures. It was evening classes for people that work during the day in other fields. Some in math, some in science, but people that had already been to college, and it was a kind of a special series of courses that they videotaped. But it was open to older people, and you can tell that from the videos themselves that it's not a stereotypical college audience. And I recommend it. It's really involved. You have to really dedicate yourself to get through it. But it's if you are able to, you'll learn a lot from it. We're all on the search for truth. These episodes and this channel is part of that search for truth. That as an attorney for 40 years, I've had the privilege of supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. This is a special country which respects all religions and no religion. You can believe anything you want as long as you don't use it to hurt someone. But your beliefs are your own. And I respect that, and I'm proud to have defended it all these years as an attorney. The freedom of speech and the freedom of religion works both ways as a right that we have. We can believe in a faith of our choice, and we can choose not to believe in a faith of our choice. We can express our faith, and we can express our doubts of faith. It works both ways. And in that spirit, we're going to take a look at the universal mind, what I believe from my own experience, from what I've perceived over the years to be. It's my little piece of the puzzle from my life experience. And you don't have to buy into it, it's okay. You can disregard it, or you can put it in your mind and let it resonate for a while and see where it takes you. So let's begin. Our relationship with the universal mind, and I understand people view and have been indoctrinated to view supreme beings as God or a Heavenly Father, or a paternal thing. But that's not the universal mind. The universal mind really doesn't have a personality. The universal mind is a blank slate. We almost have to, not almost, our dealing with the universal mind ultimately is counterintuitive. What do I mean by that? You want to become one with the Supreme Being. You want to become one with God. You want to become one with the universal mind. How can you do that? Well, you can't. Not by pursuing it. Our consciousness is consumed by sensory data, sensory inputs. We're flooded with them from our bodies and from the external environment. So we're flooded with sensory data. We're consumed by it. The only way we can avoid it is when we sleep or when we meditate. And meditating in pursuit of oneness doesn't work. It doesn't work. That you may not want to agree with that, but when you think of the universal mind as a whole, it only knows itself. If it thinks of itself in relation to anything else, it's denying its own oneness. Counterintuitive. If you pursue oneness with the universal mind or with your God or whatever, you're not going to touch it. Like poles of two magnets, you push each other away. The more you pursue oneness, you are reinforcing within your own consciousness your separateness. I know it's counterintuitive, but that's the way it is. And until you accept that, it's not pursuing oneness is counterproductive. It doesn't work. You can't pursue it. It exists already. And if you pursue it, you're denying it. Don't you see? Do you understand that? If you reach for a oneness that you already have, you're trying to convince yourself you're not one. But you are. So stop thinking about it. Don't you see? Meditation, even if however it's focused, is a denial of oneness. Prayer, I want this, I want that. It's a denial of oneness. It's saying, I'm separate from you within your own mind. So you cannot, the universal mind, let's say it wanted to give you a miracle, but only if you accepted the oneness and the extent to which you pray for oneness, you're telling the universal mind within you, I'm not one with you, block it. You're blocking yourself from the awareness of oneness. Don't you see? I mean, when you think about it, it's very simple, but it's extremely difficult to do because we are, from the time we're born to the time we die, we are confronted second by second, minute by minute, day by day, year by year with separateness, individuality from everything. And really that's the goal of evolution. Individuality is the premise upon which evolution is based. Higher degrees of individuality and of the awareness of individuality. How is that consistent with the universal mind, which I believe created evolution? The physical reality that we exist in was created by the universal mind. We are the only expression that the universal consciousness has. We as individuals are used to it. Why are we created? Why? We are the brush upon which it paints its picture of itself. Because everything that exists and everything we create and is created is part of the picture of the universal mind. Everything that exists is of the universal mind. We are the brush, and we are the hand, and we are the oils, and we are the blank slate the universe has created. What we do creates the picture of itself that we as part of it creates out of inspiration we receive from within ourselves and it, the universal mind. The harder you try to become one with the universal mind, the further away you drive it away from you. Merely trying to connect reinforces your awareness of your own separation, which is an illusion. You're actually one with universal consciousness, except for your experience of separateness in a physical reality in which we live, which is pretty substantial. And it's a substantial interference. Some call it veils, but it's a substantial interference. It really prevents us from appreciating how much we are one. For example, we can't see photons as individual particles or even waves. They have a wave-particle duality. We can't experience it because we can't see it. What we see is a very small, we call it the visual spectrum of light. But photons, the energy of photons goes well beyond that, on the high end and the low end. And we can't experience it. So we really don't understand. We never perceive our reality in which we live. Only a little teeny part of it. The rest is kept from us. How do we get through that? We have to open ourselves, open our consciousness to our oneness, which means we've got to, if here's an analogy, the flower, it's in soil. You can't see the roots because of the soil. If you're the stem or the bud or the bloom of the flower, you can't see your roots because of the soil. You can feel them, but to feel the root underneath the soil, you have to forget about the sun, all the things above ground that are interacting with your sensory apparatus as a flower. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, humans, we can meditate, which means blanking our minds, taking our consciousness away from our sensory awareness, and trying to create an opening to allow the awareness within us that we're one with the universal mind to take over. It has to happen itself. We cannot pursue it because then we close the door. Any effort we make to try to become one, any conscious effort, we close the door because we're denying our oneness. We're interfering with the process of us making ourselves aware of our oneness that already exists, if you understand. So you have to find distractions. You have to be able to distract your conscious mind and kind of clear that away to create opening. And it takes time. It takes a long time to do that. But then again, things happen unexpectedly. In the shower, you're thinking about something, and all of a sudden you're inspired. Daydreaming. You're thinking about nothing. You're staring off into space, and then you get inspired. Openings do happen spontaneously. Contrary to what some may try to convince you of, even atheists get miracles. Even atheists get inspired because the universal mind is not a religion. It's reality. Religions are created by men, mostly men. And they're mostly misogynistic, which tells you how enlightened they are not. Most religions, especially Western religions, are built upon two things: greed and the lust for power. All right, I didn't want to get into this, but we're going to have to. It's sad but true that if you take a look at history, and before I went to law school, I got my master's degree in international relations. My thesis was on counterterrorism. And if I hadn't gone to law school, I had been accepted to get my doctorate at an Eastern university, Eastern United States University. If you look at history, you may or not agree, but it's my perception. I look at history, let's put it that way. I look at history, and what I see is the pursuit of power by some who create armies from historically clan-based, city-based, and then as the institution of civilization grew, so did the need or desire to have armies for conquering other cities, other communities. Why? To compel obedience. Why? Money and followers. Compelling people to follow a leader for their armies and just for taxes, for rich. Religions have done the same thing, but they haven't used physical force. Not always, but they have, of course. The way religions get money is to portray existence as let's put it this way, they sell the fear of death and the uncertainty of what happens after death. And they offer, if you believe us in our religion, don't believe their religion, because you'll go to hell if you do their religion. You come to our religion, you'll go to heaven. But you have to be in our religion, you have to pay us money. And you have to do what we tell you to do. You have to let us control your life. Western religion, and there are a few of them, each wants you to obey it rather than the other. And and each accuses the other of being a heretic, which will lead you to hell. Okay? Which is the only premise by which they can exist, is by convincing you that only by following it will you get to heaven, avoid hell, but you have to pay money and do whatever they tell you to do with your life because they know better than you. Bullshit. If the universal force created everything, and that's one thing they all agree. There's a universal force that created everything. Then it created the hell and heaven that they claim exist. Where is it? It has to be in a physical reality. None of the religions allege non-physical heavens or hells. It's in a physical reality. The burning you can feel. The joy you can feel, which means you have senses in which to feel it. Therefore, they are physical realities. You can't get somebody to fear burning in hell unless their senses exist, which means it's based upon a physical reality of existence, a physical awareness of existence. So, by definition, they have to have occurred. They have to be somewhere in the physical universe, or they don't exist at all. Okay, you can't sell fear of hell as a burning pit without accepting that it exists in a physical reality. Otherwise, you don't feel anything, so who cares? All right? They have to buy into that. They created their own illusion. The problem with that is that, well, in the past, they had no fear of being exposed. Religion had no fear of being exposed because nobody could tell anybody there's no heaven or hell. You couldn't prove it. Well, now we can. There's a physical way to prove there's no heaven and no hell. In fact, two proofs. The Hubble telescope and the Webb telescope have looked back through time, through the physical universe, to the very beginning of it, as far back as we can see through telescopes, and that takes us to a point 300,000 years post Big Bang. At the point in time, the non-binding era ended. What was the non-binding era? The non-binding era occurred right after the Big Bang, when the pressure and heat was so great in the beginning universe that electrons couldn't bind to atoms to form molecules, and photons couldn't move. They were trapped in this plasma. And it's our theory, my theory, that within that plasma, during those 300,000 years, it is that plasma that created that time and space that created the interrelationships between matter and energy, that created the formulas, all the interactions between matter and energy that have formed the basis of formulas that our researchers and scientists down through the ages have discovered. Okay? That's the reality. The Hubble and the Webb telescopes have looked to that point. No heaven and no hell. So, that is a reality religion must face. And I think that is why so many people are now buying into reincarnation. The Pew Research Center, back in 2021, did a study, a random sample of Americans, and found that 1/3 of American adults believe in some form of reincarnation. 1/3 believe that they've been here before. Not in heaven, not in hell, but in this world. They know whatever illusion heaven and hell are, They exist only in this world. We create heaven and we create hell for ourselves and each other in this world. Um, with the concept of universal mind, you don't have to. There is no need for an intercessor to intervene for you with any superior being. You are your own intercessor. The universal mind speaks within each of us because we are all, our consciousness is all part of it. We are it. We are the universal mind. When you meditate, you are seeking a conversation, a oneness with yourself. So there is no need for a third party, whether in a robe or any other garb. You don't need a chalice. You don't need a scepter. Symbols of authority don't matter. There's only one authority that matters, and that's the one inside of you and each one of us. And until you get to know it and allow yourself to, your awareness to become enlightened, if you want to use that word. What is enlightenment? A greater awareness of your inner oneness with the universal mind. That's it. It's not rocket science. It's just not been taught to anybody because there are those that want your money. There are those that want your obedience and will try to scare you into thinking you will go to hell if you don't obey them. And I suggest you think seriously about freeing yourself from that enslavement. It's a spiritual enslavement that's existed for 2,000 years. People born, lived, and died not knowing the truth. And that matters because your consciousness, when you die, you feel, a lot of people I think feel fear. I've already died. If you've listened to any of the prior episodes, you understand. If you've listened to all of them, you understand what I went through as a young child. I've been there, and I came back. But what I saw was enough to teach me, for me to realize a reality, because I experienced it. And that's the difference between faith and belief and knowing. If you have faith in something, it's not because you've experienced it yourself, it's because you've accepted what somebody tells you. You have faith in them. Well, why should you have faith in them? What is it of them that entitles them your faith, your trust? Have they been there? Have they done that? Or have they read it from a book that somebody wrote thousands of years ago? And we really don't even know under what circumstances it was written. We take it on faith. Well, with science comes the need for knowing, the search for knowing, the search for truth. And that, to me, is more compelling. Now, certainly, it may be of more comfort to think of, well, I'll go to heaven. I know my grandmother was a very religious person. I loved her very much. She was a light of love and charity and compassion to all. She taught Sunday school. She went to church multiple times a week. I believe her to be very spiritual as far as she understood spirituality. And she was sincere about it. And religion is full of people like that. And the one compelling goodness religion can boast of is the goodness of the people who belong to it and the goodness they have done. But I submit to you, isn't it true that those good people would have searched out any organization to join and become part of and to express their goodness, even if it wasn't religiously oriented? They would have done it anyway, because they're inherently good. Why? Because they're filled with the universal mind and the feeling of oneness within themselves. They feel more one. It's just they don't maybe express it that way, but the term, it's like jargon. Who cares if you get the message across? If it resonates, fine. The problem with religion are not those people who are sincere and good. The problem is the people that run the religions. They seek power and money and obedience. Too many social issues are determined by elites who are self-righteous and who have no real claim to any authority other than the scepter, robe, the mantle they adorn themselves with to try to convince others to listen to them. And that goes for politicians too. If you take a look at Congress today, what kind of authority does Marjorie Taylor Greene deserve? Excuse me. What authority does Donald Trump deserve? What obedience does he deserve? And yet he expects it just like Marjorie Taylor Greene does. Why? Ego. Just ego. That's all. And they're not alone. They're not alone. There's a whole crew of narcissistic, ego-minded, superficial individuals. And it's not just in this country. Putin, Kim Jong-un, the guys that run Iran, a lovely land, lovely people, enslaved by an autocracy under the guise of pseudo-religion. The universe is full of beauty, it's full of wonder, and it's full of miracles that are equally shared by those who have a claim of religion or who are atheist. Your religious views are irrelevant to the universal mind. The universal mind doesn't play favorites. And whether you are Russia or Ukraine, whether you are Gazan or Israeli, whether you're Arab or Jew, whether you are communist or capitalist, the universal mind doesn't care. It doesn't care. The universal mind is a universe, and we are but one planet of lonely, alone souls searching for answers and suffering, not knowing why sometimes the sky falls on us. And through history we feared, is it because God hates us? Because we've offended God? No. God doesn't care. The universe doesn't see it that way. The universe acts only through us. It is unaware of us because it is only aware of itself. And we are of itself. It's us that have separated ourselves from the oneness because of our physicality. It's us that needs work on, not the other way around. There are those that say, God's dead. Excuse me. They don't understand the universal mind. That's a very, if I may say, sophomoric perception. God can't die because God is the only thing, universal mind is God, and God's the only thing that exists. You are a part of it. You've always been a part of it. You just don't know it because you only see what's directly in front of you, not the history of how everything that is part of you physically came into being through billions of years of photons, matter and energy, combining, recombining through billions of years. There's a difference between being religious and being spiritual. Don't confuse the two. Religiousness is following orders from people who think they know more than you and want your money and want your obedience for some purpose they may perhaps not want you to know. Okay. Spirituality comes from within you. And the universal mind within you is your best teacher. Seek it out. Learn how to open yourself to it through proper meditation. If a child, if two children, if two brothers started fighting, what would a father do? Would he take sides? Not a loving father. Maybe Donald Trump's father would take sides, but he was not a loving father. He was a hateful father who created a monster in Donald Trump. And that's sad. Not for just him, but for all of us. Because in his misguided, tortured soul, he seeks to rule everyone out of nothing. Because his money can't buy obedience, although he tries. And some have accepted money to be obedient to him. But it's not real, and it's not lasting. That's all I have to say for today. I thank you very much for your attention. This is the Universal Mind, and you have a great day.